The galaxy thrived in a delicate balance. Humanity, a young but rapidly ascending species, had carved a place among the stars through sheer determination and ingenuity. Unlike other species that relied on ancient traditions or inherited power, humans built their reputation from the ground up, innovating, adapting, and learning at a speed that left even the oldest civilizations wary. Yet, despite their growing influence, humanity sought peace. The wars of Earth's past had taught them the cost of unchecked ambition. Captain Elias Vren stood at the observation deck of the TNS Resolute, his sharp eyes scanning the sprawling nebulae ahead. The ship hummed with quiet efficiency, the crew moving with precision under his command. Elias was a man of discipline, his presence exuding the kind of authority earned through years of service. He was not one for dramatics, yet today unease gnawed at him. A formal diplomatic meeting with the Zathoran species loomed, a species shrouded in mystery and arrogance. The Zathoran had first made contact months ago, their emissaries cold and condescending. They saw humanity as an upstart species, insignificant in the grand tapestry of the galaxy. Elias had read the reports. The Zathoran were technologically advanced, their ships sleek and bristling with unknown weaponry. Their tone, however, was what concerned him most, dismissive, disdainful, and unapologetically predatory. "Captain," a voice interrupted his thoughts. Elias turned to see Commander Rin Arvid, his trusted second-in-command. Rin's expression was grim. "The Zathoran delegation has arrived. They're requesting immediate docking clearance." Elias nodded. "Granted. Assemble the delegation team in the main conference room. I want a full report on their ship's capabilities before the meeting begins." "Yes, sir," Rin replied, hesitating briefly. "Permission to speak freely?" "Granted." "I don't trust them," Rin admitted. "The way they've acted so far. It's like they're daring us to provoke them." "You're not alone in that sentiment," Elias said. "But our orders are clear. Diplomacy first." Minutes later, Elias entered the conference room, his team already in place. Beside him was Dr. Kieran Lorne, a brilliant xenolinguist with a knack for navigating tense interspecies interactions. Across the table sat the Zathoran delegation, three figures clad in shimmering black armor, their reptilian features inscrutable. The Zathoran leader, who introduced himself as Prime Overseer Kaelf, wasted no time with pleasantries. "Humans," he began, his voice a low hiss. "You expand like weeds. You encroach on territories far beyond your means. Do you truly believe your kind belongs among the stars?" Elias remained composed, his expression neutral. "We are here to discuss peaceful coexistence, Overseer. Humanity has no interest in conflict." Kaelf let out a guttural laugh. "Peace? Coexistence? Your species does not understand its place. You are fortunate we tolerate your presence at all." Dr. Lorne attempted to redirect the conversation, his tone measured. "Overseer, we believe mutual cooperation could benefit both our civilizations. Trade agreements, shared research." Kaelf raised a clawed hand, silencing him. "Enough. We did not come here to negotiate. We came to give you a choice. Submit to Zathoran authority, or face the consequences of your insolence." The room fell silent, the weight of the threat hanging in the air. Elias met Kaelf's gaze, his voice calm but firm. "Humanity does not bow to threats. If you seek war, you will find us more capable than you assume." Kaelf leaned forward, his slit-pupil eyes narrowing. "Your arrogance will be your undoing, Captain. We will give you time to reconsider." "But not much." With that, the Zathoran delegation rose and left, their armored boots echoing down the corridor. As soon as they were out of earshot, Rin exhaled sharply. That didn't feel like diplomacy. That felt like a declaration. It was, Elias said, his tone grim. And they won't wait long to act on it. Hours later, the warning came. A transmission from a nearby human colony, an agricultural hub with minimal defenses, was abruptly cut off. Moments after, Sensor arrays on the Resolute detected an energy surge from the direction of the colony's system. Elias didn't need confirmation to understand what had happened. The Zathoran had made their move, and it was one designed to send a message. Humanity's refusal to submit would not go unpunished. The Resolute raced to the colony, its engines pushed to their limits. When they arrived, the scene was worse than anyone could have imagined. The planet's surface was scorched, its atmosphere choked with ash and debris. No signs of life remained. Elias stood on the bridge, his jaw clenched tightly. This wasn't just an attack. It was an extermination. The Zathoran had chosen to make an example of the colony, wiping it from existence as if it were nothing more than an annoyance. "Captain," Rin said quietly, his voice strained. "Initial scans show no survivors." The crew fell silent, the weight of the loss settling over them like a suffocating blanket. For Elias, the devastation was personal. His younger brother, Aaron, had been stationed at the colony, a promising engineer who had dreamed of helping humanity thrive among the stars. Elias closed his eyes, the image of his brother's smile flashing briefly in his mind before being replaced by the sight of the ruined planet below. When he opened them again, his gaze was steely, his voice steady. "Transmit the report to High Command," he ordered. "Include everything. I want the Council to see exactly what the Zathoran are capable of." "And what about us, sir?" Rin asked. Elias turned to face his crew, his expression hard but resolute. "We wait for orders. But make no mistake, this is not over." As the Resolute drifted silently above the remains of the colony, Elias stood alone in his quarters, staring out at the void. He knew humanity had crossed the threshold. The Zathoran had underestimated them, but they would soon learn a lesson that no species had dared to teach humanity before. This wasn't just war. It was vengeance. The air aboard the TNS Resolute was charged with an intensity that no one dared to break. Every crew member moved with silent determination, their focus absolute. Orders were given in curt, efficient tones, and the clamor of preparation echoed through the ship's halls. Humanity had been provoked, and there was no room left for hesitation. Captain Elias Vren stood at the center of the command deck, his face a mask of cold resolve. The orders had come through from High Command. The Zathoran's unprovoked attack had left humanity no choice but to respond in kind. But this wasn't merely retaliation. This was a calculated, ruthless operation, designed to send a message that would echo through the stars. "How long until the fleet is in position?" Elias asked, his voice cutting through the hum of activity. "Final staging will be completed within the hour," Commander Rin Arvid replied, standing at his side. "The assault teams have finished integrating the new kinetic artillery systems, and the fleet stealth modules are operational." Elias nodded. The experimental technology had been rushed into deployment, humanity's brightest minds working around the clock to prepare for what was coming. The Zathoran had misjudged humanity's restraint as weakness, and now they would learn the cost of their arrogance. On the display screen before them, the Zathoran homeworld loomed in sharp resolution. It was a planet of dark oceans and sprawling cities, its surface alight with the glow of a civilization that had known nothing but dominance. Elias studied it in silence, his thoughts heavy. He wasn't a man who relished war, but the devastation of the colony of his brother had left him no choice. "Captain," Rin said, his voice softer now, "are we certain this is the only way?" Elias turned to face him, his expression unreadable. "They made their choice, Commander. Now we make ours." The final preparations were completed with mechanical precision. The Terran fleet, a vast armada of battleships, frigates, and stealth cruisers, moved into formation. From the observation deck of the Resolute, Elias watched as the ships emerged from the void, their hulls gleaming against the faint light of a distant star. Each vessel was a testament to humanity's ingenuity and determination, a force unmatched in its precision and lethality. The bridge fell into a tense silence as the countdown began. Tactical officers manned their stations, their hands hovering over controls that could unleash destruction on an unprecedented scale. Elias stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the enemy planet. "Begin the operation," he commanded, his voice calm and deliberate. The first phase was surgical. A wave of precision strikes disabled the Zethorans' orbital defenses before their sensors could register the attack. Satellites and weapon platforms were obliterated in seconds, their remains scattering across the planet's atmosphere. The Terran fleet moved with relentless efficiency, exploiting the Zethorans' overconfidence and lack of preparation. Elias observed the battlefield with an almost detached focus, issuing orders with the clarity of a seasoned strategist. "Target the primary power grids. We want their infrastructure crippled before they can mount a counteroffensive." Within minutes, the Zethoran homeworld plunged into chaos. Cities were cloaked in darkness as power stations were systematically destroyed. Communication arrays were silenced, leaving their military blind and fragmented. Resistance came swiftly, but it was disorganized and desperate. The Zethoran forces unprepared for the scale and precision of humanity's assault. In the midst of the carnage, Elias's mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. Every strike, every destroyed target, brought him closer to avenging the lives lost at the colony. Yet, beneath his fury, there was a gnawing sense of loss, a realization that war, no matter how justified, left wounds that could never fully heal. "Enemy fleet is mobilizing," an officer reported, breaking through his thoughts. "They're launching from the surface and their secondary outposts." Elias nodded, his expression hardening. "Engage them before they can regroup. Prioritize their command ships. Cut off the head, and the body will fall." The Terran ships moved to intercept, their weapons lighting up the void. The Zethoran vessels, sleek and menacing, charged into the fray, their pilots driven by a mix of desperation and rage. But the outcome was clear from the start. The Terran fleet fought with discipline and coordination, their maneuvers honed through years of rigorous training. The Zethoran, accustomed to dominating weaker foes, faltered against an enemy that refused to yield. In the chaos of battle, Elias's voice rang steady over the comms, directing the fleet with unwavering precision. He watched as ship after ship fell to the Terran onslaught, their wreckage scattering into the void. Yet his focus never wavered from the ultimate objective, the planet below. As the battle raged on, a transmission came through from one of the Zethoran leaders, their voice trembling with fury. "Humans, this is madness. You cannot hope to." Elias cut the transmission, his tone icy. "Their words mean nothing now. Continue the operation." The final phase of the assault began. The Resolute led the charge as the fleet descended into the planet's upper atmosphere. Orbital strikes targeted military installations and industrial hubs, leaving the Zethoran forces in disarray. The once proud cities of their empire burned, their towering spires reduced to smoldering ruins. In the aftermath of the devastation, Elias stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the shattered planet below. The Zethoran had been defeated, their empire brought to its knees. Yet, even as victory loomed, he felt no triumph, only a cold, hollow resolve. "Status report," he said quietly, breaking the silence. "Resistance is neutralized," Rin replied. "The remaining Zethoran forces are retreating. They're in complete disarray." Elias nodded, his expression unreadable. "Send the message." The Terran fleet spared a single Zethoran leader, ensuring they would live to carry the weight of humanity's warning. A message was transmitted across the remnants of their empire, its tone as clear as it was final. "If you speak of us, if you challenge us again, there will be nothing left to save." As the fleet began its return journey, Elias remained at the observation deck, staring into the void. The battle was over, but the consequences of his actions lingered. The Zethoran had learned the price of provoking humanity, but at what cost? In his heart, Elias knew the war had changed him and humanity itself, in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. The void stretched endlessly before the TNS Resolute, a vast and silent expanse that seemed to swallow the light of distant stars. In the wake of humanity's fury, there was no sound, no resistance, only the lingering echoes of destruction. The Zathoran homeworld had been broken, its once mighty civilization reduced to fractured remnants. Yet, the weight of victory hung heavy aboard the Terran fleet, and no one felt it more than Captain Elias Vren. Elias sat alone in his quarters, his eyes fixed on a datapad that lay untouched on the desk. The official reports were thorough, strategic objectives met, enemy forces decimated, human casualties minimal. By every measure, the operation had been a success. But success brought no comfort. The faces of the lost colony's inhabitants, of his brother Aaron, haunted his thoughts. He had avenged them, but the hollow ache of loss remained. The chime of the intercom broke the silence. "Captain, this is Commander Arvid. We've received a message from High Command. Shall I patch it through?" Elias straightened, his voice steady. "Send it to my terminal." The screen flickered to life, revealing Admiral Renard, one of humanity's most respected leaders. The Admiral's face was lined with age, his expression unreadable. "Captain Vren," he began, his voice calm but firm, "you've done what was necessary. The Zathoran will not recover from this. Humanity's place in the galaxy is secure." "Yes, sir," Elias replied, his tone neutral. Renard's gaze sharpened, but the cost was not insignificant. "We've sent a message to the galaxy, one that will echo for generations. Some will see us as protectors, others as a threat. How we proceed from here will determine what kind of legacy we leave." Elias nodded, though the words did little to ease his thoughts. "Understood, Admiral. Is there anything further?" The Admiral hesitated for a moment. "Rest, Captain. You've earned it." As the transmission ended, Elias leaned back in his chair, the weight of the Admiral's words settling over him. Rest felt like an impossibility. The image of the ruins of Thorin cities, of the charred remains of their civilization, was seared into his mind. Humanity's strength had been undeniable, but what lingered now was a question he couldn't shake. Had they become something to fear? The days that followed were quiet, the fleet returning to human-controlled space with little fanfare. The Zathoran survivors, scattered and broken, offered no resistance. Their silence was absolute, their name barely spoken even among their own kind. For the first time in centuries, a civilization had been forced into irrelevance, their ambitions crushed under the weight of humanity's retribution. Elias moved through the ship with the same composed authority, but his crew could see the strain beneath the surface. Commander Arvid was the only one who dared to voice it. "Captain," Rin said one evening, finding Elias on the observation deck, "we need to talk." Elias didn't turn, his eyes fixed on the swirling nebula in the distance. "Go on." Rin hesitated, then pressed forward. "The crew respects you, but they're worried. The weight of what we've done. It's not just on your shoulders." Elias sighed, his voice quiet. "And yet, it feels like it is. I made the decisions. I gave the orders. We all followed them," Rin said firmly, "because we believed in what we were doing. Because we trusted you." Elias finally turned, his expression conflicted. "Did we do the right thing, Rin? Or did we just prove that we're no different from the ones we sought to stop?" Rin met his gaze, his own doubt reflected in his eyes. "I don't know, but I do know that colony deserved justice. And if we hadn't acted, who else would have?" The words offered a sliver of solace, though they didn't erase the doubts. Elias nodded, the conversation ending in silence as the two men stood together, staring into the vastness of space. Months passed, and the story of the Zathoran faded into obscurity. Humanity's reputation grew, their alliances strengthened by fear as much as respect. Other species began to tread carefully around the Terran fleet, their leaders cautious not to provoke the wrath that had obliterated the Zathoran. For Elias, the weight of what had been done never fully lifted, but he found purpose in ensuring that humanity would wield its power wisely. One day, while overseeing new recruits aboard the Resolute, Elias overheard a young cadet whispering to another. "What happened to the Zathoran?" the cadet asked, his tone curious. Before Elias could respond, the instructor, a grizzled veteran who had served under Elias during the assault, spoke up, his voice curt. "We don't talk about them." The cadet looked confused but didn't press further. Elias felt a pang of both relief and regret. The silence surrounding the Zathoran was intentional, a deliberate decision by High Command to erase their existence from the annals of galactic history. They were a warning, a ghostly reminder of what humanity was capable of when pushed too far. As the recruits continued their drills, Elias stepped away, his thoughts distant. He had dedicated his life to protecting humanity, to ensuring their survival in an unforgiving galaxy. But the cost of that survival was a burden he would carry forever. Standing once more at the observation deck, Elias gazed out into the endless void. The stars glimmered faintly, distant and indifferent. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Zathoran clung to life, their names spoken only in hushed whispers. Elias took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. The galaxy would remember what humanity had done, and it would tread carefully in the years to come. But for now, there was silence, a silence born of fear of loss and of the terrible power humanity had unleashed.